Looks like we're good to
Well,
go.
good morning, everyone.
We are live.
And welcome. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Township of Georgian Bay Planning Council meeting of Tuesday, August 10th. And I'd like to call this meeting to order at 9:01. In the spirit of reconciliation, we wish to acknowledge the enduring relationship between the Indigenous peoples and the territories they traditionally occupied. We recognize and deeply appreciate the historic connection they have to this place, the land, the water, the sky, and all that live on, in, and above it. We are grateful for the opportunity to meet here, and we thank all the generations of Indigenous peoples who have taken care of this place and who continue to care for it. And we want to show our respect. Hundreds of years after the first treaties were signed, they remain relevant today. May they guide our decisions and our actions. We commit to learn, to educate, to honor sacred places, and to take actions towards real truth and reconciliation. Miigwech. Councillors, any declarations of pecuniary interest or code of conduct, conflicts, or anything like that? I'm seeing people shake their heads, so we'll move on. And I believe the first resolution I have in front of me is moved by Councillor Bocek and seconded by Councillor Cooper. Be it resolved that Council adopts the planned agenda of August 10th, 2021 as circulated.
I don't see Councillor Bocek on the call.
Well, hopefully he will be able to join us shortly. In the meantime, those who are on the call, all in favor of the agenda? All right, and that is carried. Thank you. And the first item under plan applications not subject to a public meeting is Development Service Report 2021-57, being the official plan amendment application 021-01 and the zoning bylaw amendment application Z21-06 for 2 Island 2170 Georgian Bay. To our planning department. Mr. Oster, I believe that's you.
Good morning, Council. I just had a quick question for the clerk. I think there was supposed to be a little bit of a shuffling to the agenda. There was a request for that. Is that something that's still possible, or?
For item 5.
Almost anything possible.
Yes, item 5D was requested to go first.
Your worship, do you have your resolutions that I provided for you on
Yes.
page 5?
Okay. That's item 5D. So we're going to go to item D first, and then we'll go back to A, B, C, I presume.
Yes.
I apologize. I didn't pick up on the clue. So let me try again. The first application we will consider this morning is Development Service Report 2021-61, zoning bylaw amendment application Z21-08-6 for 680 Mermaid Island, Eddy, and it's the removal of a holding or H2 symbol. And now I suppose we can go to the planning department. But before we do, just one moment, I saw Councillor Bocek. Councillor Bocek, welcome. And I just want to double check whether you had any conflicts of interest or pecuniary interest that you need to declare that you're aware of.
No conflicts or pecuniary today, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Officer, over to you.
So our planning consultants, JL Richards, are going to present this file. If we could just bring Sarah Verreau into the meeting. I believe she's doing the presentation, and Aaron as well.
Hi, good morning. My name is Erin. I'm one of the planners with JL Richards. We're acting as the consultants for the Township of Georgian Bay, and I'll be giving the presentation this morning for this application.
I also see a familiar face from our past, Mr. Robinson, welcome.
Good morning, Jamie.
Good morning. How's everybody this morning? Nice to see everyone.
Yes, likewise.
Likewise.
So Aaron, I'd call you by your last name, but I don't know it, so please go ahead.
Sorry, I don't have it up there. It's Reed.
Ms. Reed, please go ahead.
Thank you. So the Township of Georgian Bay has received an application from MHBC Planning on behalf of Kathy and Warren Eddy to remove the holding symbol on the lot known municipally as 680 Mermaid Island to facilitate the development of a cottage or a dwelling on the property. In the Township of Georgian Bay official plan, this lot is designated as waterfront and is within the Honey Harbor Coastal Waterfront community. The lot is currently zoned shoreline residential island type 1 with a holding symbol, and the proposed and recommended zone is shoreline residential island type 1. In order to remove the holding symbol, a plan of survey confirming the lot area above the specified contour and to confirm the location of the high water mark is required. The lot is currently vacant and the surrounding lands are residential. The intention is to build a dwelling on the property. When reviewing the mapping for this area, type 2 fish habitat was identified on the shoreline. In section D.1.6.2 of the official plan, it does note that type 2 habitat is not considered critical and does not require a fish assessment. As mentioned, the lot is shoreline residential island type 1 with holding symbol. In order to remove this holding symbol, a survey is required. The survey provided did confirm that the lot area met the minimum required lot area of 4,000 square meters. The minimum lot frontage is 60 meters. However, the lot only has 42 meters of frontage. Section 4.11F of the bylaw does allow development on lots with reduced frontage, provided that the lot existed prior to the date of passing of the current bylaw and complies with other provisions of the zoning bylaw. Section 4.11G further states that shoreline residential island zones shall only apply provided that the island has at least 27 meters of frontage and a lot area of 0.2 hectares. The subject lot does meet these provisions of the zoning bylaw. A sketch was also provided with the application. This has been attached to the staff report, and the proposed location of the dwelling does comply with the provisions of the shoreline residential island type 1 zone. So in our opinion, the proposed application is consistent with the relevant policies of the PPS, conforms with the general intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw. The application meets all requirements for removing the holding symbol and is recommended for approval. So I'll now turn it back over to you guys if you have any questions that I can answer at this time.
All right, thank you very much. I'm seeing Mr. Robinson. Did you want to speak on behalf of the applicant at all? I mean, this is not a public meeting, but as an applicant, if you had any additional comments, or are you just here for answering our questions?
Your worship, I'm happy to say a few words. It is a statutory public meeting today. It was advertised as such. If I'm able, I can share my screen and just provide a few brief comments on behalf of the applicant. It's a pretty straightforward application though, so I'll keep things brief, but there's a couple of visuals to provide that may assist just with the location of the property, etc.
Please go ahead, thank you.
Karen, are you able to make me, give me the ability to share my screen? There we go. Okay. Everybody see that okay? Perfect, okay. So the proposal's already been introduced by Ms. Reed, so I'll just skip through the sort of preamble, but the subject property is located on Mermaid Island, and this is the location. Just for everybody's interest, the applicants also own the property immediately to the south of the subject lands. What's precipitated this application is a growing family. and a need to establish a second cottage. So it'll be one cottage on the subject lands, but that property is currently vacant. But that's really what's been the impetus for this application. This figure shows the location of the subject property and provides an aerial. So you can see the lot that the Edie's own to the south of the property is developed with a dwelling and a docking structure, and the proposed dwellings to be located on this lot here. So as Ms. Reed mentioned, the lot area through the survey has been identified as just under 6,200 square meters, and it's got 42 meters of frontage on Georgian Bay. And as alluded to, the way the zoning bylaw works is the property is zoned SR1. So the SR1 zone has standards, but there's also a general provision in the zoning bylaw that applies to existing vacant lots of record. So there's reduced standards that are permitted to enable development on existing vacant lots of record. And this lot is well in excess of those standards. The standard is 27 meters of frontage. And from a lot area perspective, it's 0.2 hectares or 2,000 square meters. So as you can see, this lot's almost double the amount of frontage that's required for a vacant lot of record, and just over triple the amount of lot area that's required. So it is just slightly under what the standard is for the SR1 zone. Here's an excerpt from the survey of the property that was completed. So the high water mark was delineated. This is actually moved. This is the location of the 177.4 contour runs in this area. Must have been a formatting issue with PowerPoint there. We wanted to show council the location of a proposed dwelling on the property. What's being proposed here is 1,000 square foot panabode structure, and I'll show you a copy of the design in a second. So it's a very modest sized cottage. The applicant doesn't propose to install a dock at this point in time because it is a family situation, but we did want to identify that there is an ability to site a dock on the property in compliance with the zoning bylaw. So this is the proposed location of the dwelling, which would meet all of the setback requirements of the zoning bylaw. And that's just a zoomed in version of that. So this is the closest point to the 177.4 contour, and that's the blue line here. And what's being proposed is a 23-meter setback, where the bylaw, as you're aware, requires a 20-meter setback. Here's an example of the proposed cabin or cottage on the property. It's a 2-bedroom, single-story structure with a dining room and a living area. It's the standard panabode design, one of their smaller units that are available. So that's really, I've got some additional slides, but I don't think we need to go through them in detail. It's a fairly straightforward application. Just wanted to make it clear again that the application does meet the requirements for the removal of the holding symbol, which are meeting the minimum lot area requirements, meeting the minimum frontage requirements, and there's no identified natural heritage features associated with the property. So with that, we'd respectfully request that council consider any comments and approve the proposed application. Thank you very much for your time, and it's very nice again to see everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Appreciate the report, and dare I say the brevity as well. Straight to the point. Are there any members of the public? If this is a public meeting, I'm a little bit confused because on my agenda it didn't say it was a public meeting, but I'm presuming that it is. Ms. Wade or Mr. Noster, are you either of you can confirm that this is a public meeting?
It is my understanding, Your Worship, that, sorry, Mr. Oster, maybe he can explain it better, but that it was falsely advertised as a public meeting, but under our planning regulations, it does not need to be a public meeting.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask if there was some advertising. Are there any members of the public who wish to comment on this?
We did not receive any letters of correspondence, Your Worship.
Okay, and I gather that nobody came to the meeting today who wanted to comment on it. In that regard, then I will turn it over to council. Council, any questions, inquiries? comments that you wish to make? I'm going to start with Councillor Cooper, followed by Councillor Jarvis.
Thank you, Mayor Kutzier, and I'm not sure who wants to address this particular question, but you know, the application seems fine. I just had one query about the dock location. And on observing the aerial photographs, you can see some of the shoreline looks like it's deeper than other parts of the shoreline. And I'm just wondering, in low water years, when we have a fluctuation of 2 meters, 6.5 feet, what the shoreline would look like where this dock has been placed. You can see the silt or sand in the picture. And so I don't know who wants to address that, but I just, if we're approving a dock location today, I'm wondering if we should be approving one where there's sufficient water depth. That's my question. Thank you.
I believe
Maybe
at
I
this
can
point,
take that, Your Worship.
All right, go ahead.
Just to be clear, we're not approving a dock location today. What's being asked to be approved is the removal of a holding symbol that would allow for a dwelling on the site. The dock is permitted in accordance with the zoning bylaw, which is what's identified. And again, the applicant has no intention to build a dock at this time. What's been shown is just a conceptual location. And if a dock is proposed on the property at any point in the future, it would be required to meet the requirements of the zoning bylaw. So there's no relief sought from the zoning bylaw with respect to any dock location as part of this application, just to be clear.
Subsequent, Councillor Cooper?
Yes, I understand what's being asked for today, and so it's not an approval for a dock location, but it is located in a certain position. And I just think I wanted to make our planners aware that there could be some risk from a low water perspective, and that's why I raised the point. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jarvis.
Yeah, I asked the same question of our planning department before this meeting, and got basically the same answer, which makes sense. This is not an application for a dock. However, the planning department, I think, is already aware that it is, as it is proposed, it is over shallow water. There is, just to answer to Mr. Cooper, there is the possibility within the bylaw that they can make a longer dock than what they're currently showing, so they could move into deeper water, according to the planning department. My only question is with regards to fish habitat. Aaron, you mentioned that as I think we said, is it FH1 or FH2? I can't remember, that no further studies are required. Is that correct?
Through you, Your Worship. Yes, that is correct.
Can you tell me what area was the whole shoreline identified as FH, or just part of it? Do you know? Or can you show us?
I do not recall. I can try and pull up the schedule that it was on. Might take me a second though.
No, it's just it's ground I know it's ground we've covered before in previous applications. We did have an specific issue with an H2 lifting a while back, and part of the issue there was fish habitat. There was also, there's also a number of other issues, but fish habitat was part of it, and part of the concern by some members of council at that time, and that's my concern this time around. This is, as per the provincial policy statement, considering the designation, as you have just stated, I'm just, for clarification on my part, there is no further requirement of a study, correct?
Yes, that's correct. There's no requirement for further study.
Thank you.
If I could just maybe add one point to that, Your Worship, just as a point of clarity. What the township zoning bylaw identifies is type 1 fish habitat, and that's the FH1 zone. There is no FH2 zone in the zoning bylaw. The zoning bylaw doesn't identify type 2 habitat. And from a provincial policy statement perspective, a township official plan perspective, and a township and a county, or sorry, and a district official plan perspective, what's considered critical fish habitat or fish habitat is the type 1 habitat. So type 2 has no real standing from a policy perspective. So I just wanted to make that clear. So pretty much all of the shoreline is considered type 2 habitat in the municipality, wherever there's any sort of vegetation at all. So,
Subsequent question, Mr. Mayor, if that's okay?
This time.
Sorry, I'm gonna harp back to the FH1. Thank you, Jamie, for the clarification. I appreciate that. In previous situations, FH1 has dictated that we do have a study done. Is that not correct, or have I missed something here?
no, that's correct. FH1 is critical fish habitat. FH2 is not critical fish habitat. That's the difference. FH1
Oh, okay.
triggers a study, FH2 does not.
It is not. Okay, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Any other councillors wish to make any comments on this application? Councillor Hazelton.
Interesting, we're talking about FH1, FH2. What's kind of interesting to me is this lot is only 4 lots away from the classic Morrow property where it's totally covered by an FH1 fish habitat. However, as we've been led to understand, that is not the case in this lot. This lot to me is a characteristic of many of the properties we have in this area. I like the comprehensiveness of what has been provided by our planning consultant to show us not only what the requirements are, but also suggested areas where development might take place. So that's going to me above and beyond the requirement. Thank you very much. And I would fully support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? What I have, the resolution reads, moved by Councillor Hazelton, seconded by Councillor Wienko. Be it resolved that Council receives Development Service Report 2021-61 and enacts Bylaw 2021-051, being a zoning bylaw amendment, Z2108, to lift a holding or H2 symbol at lands located at 680 Mermaid Island, Georgian Bay. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, members of council, and thanks again to staff and your consultant.
It's good to see you again, Mr. Robinson. Take care.
Likewise, thanks.
Now, will the officials of this meeting allow me to go back to 5A? I'm hopeful. So I'm going to repeat myself and say in front of us is Development Service Report 2021-57, which is the official plan amendment application 021-01 and zoning bylaw amendment application Z21-06 for 2 Island 2170 Georgian Bay. To our planning department. Mr. Oster.
Good morning again, Council. I'm just going to bring up the presentation here. If I could just get a thumbs up if everyone can see that. Perfect. All right, so this morning we have official plan and zoning bylaw amendments O2101 and Z2106 for 2 Island 2170 Cognishing, returning to council with recommendation from staff. Just this location map of the subject land shown here in gray. They are located in the Cognishing waterfront community, located just north of Kennebec Island and at the mouth of the Ferdy Channel. The surrounding land uses here include a majority of shoreline residential properties. So the 2018 aerial imagery, you can see the location of the existing dwelling shown here in red. That is proposed to be converted to a sleeping cabin, the existing docking, as well as the location of the proposed dwelling, the approximate location shown in yellow, that is proposed to be set back more than 20 meters to the high water mark. There is existing mature vegetation located throughout the property that would act to screen the proposed dwelling, as well as screen from 3 sides the existing dwelling that is proposed to be converted to the sleeping cabin. So just a quick overview of the policy framework. The lands are considered to be rural lands within the context of the PPS. They are designated waterfront in the district and the township official plan. as well as located within the Cognition coastal waterfront community. And the lands are presently zoned Cognition Shoreline Residential Island, SRI 7, under the zoning bylaw. So the purpose and effect of the applications is to establish site-specific official plan policies and zoning bylaw provisions for the lands related to built form standards for the dwelling and a sleeping cabin, as well as to permit a sleeping cabin within the front yard. It is important to note for council's consideration is that the applicant has revised the size of the dwelling following the public meeting that was held in June. The proposed dwelling now complies with the gross floor area policies and provisions of the official plan and the zoning bylaw. So relief is no longer sought to those policies or provisions. So there are two sections of the official plan that are proposed to be amended. The first being section F336. The amendment essentially speaks to permitting one sleeping cabin within the front yard with a maximum gross floor area of 93 square meters and a minimum front yard setback to the high water mark of 2.5 meters. Both the gross floor area and the front yard setback recognize the conditions of the existing building that is presently on the property. And the second amendment to the official plan that is proposed is to amend section F51084. And the effect of this amendment would be to permit a maximum dwelling width of 29 meters on the property. To implement the proposed official plan amendment, the applicant has requested the following site-specific zoning bylaw provisions, being a maximum front yard setback of, a minimum front yard setback of 2.5 meters to a sleeping cabin, again recognizing the setback of the existing structure, a maximum gross floor area of 93 square meters for a sleeping cabin, again recognizing the GFA of that existing building, and a maximum dwelling width of 29 meters. Planning staff have recommended that a holding symbol be applied through the rezoning, with the condition for removal being a site plan agreement. The resolution today that staff prepared for council's consideration was to have the zoning bylaw amendment enacted should the district approve the official plan amendment, as they are the approval authority. So an overview of the survey and site plan that was submitted with the application. You can see the existing dwelling located here, the existing dock, as well as the location of the proposed dwelling. And this black line here is the 20 meter setback to the high water mark. The elevation drawings of the proposed dwelling. I did include a note there at the bottom that the applicant did not provide revised elevation drawings of the dwelling that account for the reduction in gross floor area. However, as no permissions are requested to permit an increased gross floor area beyond what the policies currently would permit, the applicant would be required to comply with the maximum gross floor area at the time of building permit. So just an overview of the comments that were received as part of the circulation back when the public meeting was held, and also the comments that were received at the meeting. There was one letter of support. There was one letter of no objection, provided that a second sleeping cabin would not be permitted. The Cognition Cottagers Association did state that they had no concerns or no issues with the application, subject to addressing the district comments. The Cognition Cottagers Association had also advised that they were in agreement with the inclusion of a condition within the site plan agreement regarding the species at risk comment from the district. The district did state through their comments that the property may contain habitat for restricted species, and that should council be satisfied that the setbacks are appropriate, they would not be opposed to approval, provided that a site plan agreement addresses phosphorus management, stormwater management, and vegetation retention. The building department also reviewed the proposed septic system design, and they are satisfied that it is of sufficient size to accommodate the proposed development in accordance with the Ontario Building Code, as well as the Township Zoning Bylaw. So just some key points from the staff report. There were no natural heritage features on or adjacent to the subject lands that were identified in the township OP that required study. 2 public comments were received in favor of the application, subject to conditions. The district comment related to how the property may contain habitat for restricted species. Staff go into a little bit more detail in the staff report based on the applicable policies. However, a quick summary of our comments to that are that given the scale of the proposed development and the proposed limited site disturbance, as the applicant is proposing to retain the existing dwelling as a sleeping cabin, as well as utilizing the existing septic system, as well as having the proposed dwelling setback more than 20 meters to the shoreline. And as the MECP did not object to the application, as well as the applicability of the Endangered Species Act, regardless of obtaining Planning Act approvals, staff are satisfied that through the site plan agreement that is required by the holding provision, species at risk and their habitat will continue to be protected. By keeping the height of the proposed dwelling to 1 story, a wider dwelling than what is normally permitted is proposed. It is important to note that the 29-meter width does represent approximately 18% of the lot frontage. Planning staff are of the opinion that the proposed sleeping cabin would remain incidental and subordinate to the principal use, which would be the dwelling. An appropriate on-site sewage disposal system can be accommodated on-site in accordance with the zoning bylaw and the OBC. The use of site plan control would act to preserve and protect natural vegetation, screen the proposed dwelling, and implement on-site phosphorus management. There was also a comment that was raised during the public meeting back in June regarding the decommissioning of the original or one of the older septic systems on the property, and a provision would be included in the site plan agreement regarding that. So just a quick summary of where we are in the application process. Back in June, we held the public meeting, and following that, there was an opportunity for the applicant to make some changes if they chose. They did and reduced the gross floor area of the dwelling. And also the species at risk comments or the comments from the district have been addressed. So now before council is a detailed policy analysis with a report from staff and a recommendation. So staff are supportive of the application and are recommending approval. And here's just the recommendation that was drafted. So if any members of council have any questions, I would be happy to answer. The applicant's agent is also in attendance this morning if council has any questions directly for them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Quite a thorough report, and I think it covered a fair bit of ground. Councilors, any questions? Councillor Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor Kutzer, and thank you, Brad, for a very comprehensive report. A lot of detail there. We just have a few little questions. Can you show me the statistics for the structures, the dwellings? I believe the lot coverage is a limit of 5%. And so what are the stats? In other words, the main dwelling is X and the sleeping cabin is Y, which equals 5%, or do you have any of that? I'm sorry, I don't see the sort of the statistics in the first report that I'm looking at here. Maybe it's somewhere down in all the different reports there.
So through the mayor to Councillor Cooper, I don't have an actual breakdown of the lot coverage as to what structure represents what percent. However, the applicant did provide in their updated planning justification report that the dwelling and the sleeping cabin represented approximately 3.7% lot coverage. And they were also proposing the construction of a boathouse, or sorry, not a boathouse, a boat port. And the 3.7%, they are permitted to go up to 5%, so they still have enough room in there to construct a boat port in accordance with the zoning bylaw provisions. They have already conducted that review.
Just a couple of subsequent questions, if I may. Mayor Kutzer, so So the boat port actually is calculated in lot coverage, is it?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I didn't realize that. Anyway, that's interesting. And I guess I have a couple of other quick comments. I rarely, if ever, have we allowed a sleeping cabin to be over 600 square feet. So this one is 1,000 square feet, but I think what's mitigating here is the fact that when the total massing is still well under what is allowed. And so for that reason, I certainly would support it, and don't feel that it's from the perspective of, as I said, massing. I think it kind of works anyway, just in a different configuration. But I would hate to have us have other applications come forward where it was not a situation like this and just simply saying, I want 1,000 square foot sleeping cabin because there's one over here. So I just raise that as an issue when you start setting precedents, but I think we've been able to cover that off by the reduction in the main dwelling. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Rienko.
A couple of questions. The first one, on one of the maps here, you have the outline of the 20 meter setback, I guess it is. The septic system that's proposed, is it going to be 30 meters back from the water, or and how does that tie in with the cabin? So it's mostly a septic issue.
So through the mayor to Councillor Bianco, the applicants are proposing to use an existing septic system. And as it's an existing septic system, it is considered to be legal non-complying. However, that system was oversized at the time when it was installed. So the system is legally existing, and it is permitted to continue to be used. And that's why it presently does not meet the 30 meters, but there's really minimal upgrades to it that are required to accommodate the proposed development.
It's not listed on it. How far back from the water is it?
I don't know if we know exactly what the setback is to the high water mark. However, as nothing really is proposed to change with the septic system, staff did not request confirmation of the setback.
Okay. And the last question is on the cabin itself. I assume it's above the high water mark because it's not on this. The high water mark is not on here, but I assume that's above the high water mark. What part of the cabin is being demolished? We have a kind of an L-shaped cottage here. What parts of it are being demolished?
So through the mayor again to Councillor Bianco, the existing dwelling that is proposed to be converted to the sleeping cabin is set back 2.5 meters to the high water mark. And they are not proposing to demolish any portion of the dwelling. What they're proposing to do is remove the kitchen facilities from that existing dwelling, which would then classify it as a sleeping cabin. And then they've requested to recognize the existing size of that structure as well.
So the holding symbol you put on this property is just to make sure the kitchen's taken out? Is that it?
The holding symbol would be to require the site plan agreement so that we can include the provisions with respect to the Endangered Species Act, the decommissioning of the old septic system, as well as ensuring the protection and preservation of the vegetation on the property.
So you're saying you're going to demolish the old septic system and build a new one on top of it?
Sorry, there's two septic systems presently on the property. So they're going to continue to use the one that they are presently using. And then the old system that currently is not in use, we would ensure that it is decommissioned appropriately.
Okay, neither one of them are on any of these maps. I have no idea where they are.
Any other comments from any of the councilors? I have one question that I was a little bit surprised by, and perhaps that's due to my personal ignorance, but you make reference to the official plan being approved by the district. I thought our official plan was our official plan. So can you explain the district involvement? Because I don't recall hearing that in many of the prior applications that we've seen.
So to the mayor, the township can approve amendments to their official plan. However, under the Planning Act, the District of Muskoka is the approval authority, as they are the upper tier government. So when the township if the township chooses to approve the official plan amendment, staff then need to make application to the district for approval of the amendment.
But it is the township's official plan, not the district's official plan?
Correct.
Okay. I'll set aside a little editorial on that at this point, but I just wanted that clarification. I appreciate it. What I have in front of me is moved by Councillor Douglas, seconded by, excuse me, sorry about that. Moved by Councillor Douglas, seconded by Councillor Bocek. Be it resolved that Development Services Report 2021-57 dated August 10, 2021, with respect to the official plan amendment application 021-01 and zoning bylaw amendment application Z21-06 for 2 Island 2170 be received, and the council enact bylaw 2021-052 to establish site-specific official plan policies for the subject lands, and that should the official plan amendments be approved by the district municipality of Muskoka, council enacts bylaw 2021-053 to rezone the subject lands to a site-specific Cognition Shoreline Residential Island Exception 63 holding, or if you will, SRI 7-63 bracket H zone. Any further comments or questions? All those in favor? And I think that's now been passed unanimously. Thank you very much. Item 5B on our list is Development Service Report 2021-58, Redeeming Bylaw Application D2101 for 129 Heath Valley Trail, Verducci. To our planner.
Going to bring up the presentation again. All right. So this is a deeming bylaw application submitted for 129 Heath Valley Trail. Here we have a location map of the subject lands. It is located on the Trans Severn Waterway, just on Heath Valley Trail here, which is off of the end of Lone Pine Road. So the Committee of Adjustment granted provisional approval to consent application B2104 to facilitate a lot addition from the adjacent lands previously this year. As a condition of the provisional approval, the applicant is required to ensure that the proposed severed lands merge with the benefiting lands into one consolidated parcel, so that they are not separately conveyable. And it would also prevent the severed lands from being developed independently. As the benefiting lands are a lot on a plan of subdivision, a deeming bylaw is required to allow the severed lands to merge with the benefiting lands. So here's just the severance sketch that was used for the Committee of Adjustment application. So presently the subject lands are comprised of all of this area, and the benefiting lands are located here right next door. What was severed through the Committee of Adjustment application were these lands here in yellow. And as the benefiting lands are a lot on a plan of subdivision, they have to be deemed to not be a lot on a plan of subdivision to allow the severed lands to merge with this and become one consolidated parcel. So that is all I have for council in terms of a presentation on that. If there's any questions, I would be happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Councillors Douglas and Bocek at this point. Councillor Douglas, please go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Brad, I'm just kind of, if you could clarify for me, this dotted yellow line here, I'm not quite sure I'm understanding. So this, the benefit and the subject land, excuse me, outlined in red all the way around is to be deemed as one parcel, and the yellow dotted line is what exactly?
So presently we have, I'm just going to bring up that slide again. So presently we have the subject lands, which is all of this.
Correct. I
And we have
understand.
the benefiting lands here. What the Committee of Adjustment granted provisional approval to do was to sever the lands outlined in yellow from the subject lands to be added to the benefiting lands. So the effect of the deeming bylaw would be to deem the benefiting lands not to be a lot on a plan of subdivision that would allow for the severed lands to merge with the benefiting lands into one consolidated parcel.
Okay, I understand now. Thank you very much for that answer.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Councillor Bocheck.
Just a couple of quick questions. The benefiting land is waterfront. The land that is going to be assumed is not waterfront. So would the new zoning reflect that the whole parcel is now has a new zoning, which would reflect the waterfront designation?
Through the mayor to Councillor Bocheck, the subject lands presently have a shoreline residential type 1 zone applied to them. So there would be no change to the zone as a result of the application. Through the Committee of Adjustment process is where we went through the reasoning as to why and how why the lot addition was required. There was essentially a registration error that saw the shoreline lands get merged with another property, so that the benefiting lands actually lost their shore frontage. So the Committee of Adjustment application was to restore access to the water. And then this application before council right now is just to allow the parcels to merge into one consolidated piece.
Okay, and I didn't see, and I don't know if it's necessary, but the purchase of the shore road allowance, is that factored into here?
On this property, there is no shore road allowance, or it was previously closed.
Okay, and is there a dwelling on, if we're merging two pieces of property together, I see two buildings, one on each property, and I see two docks, one on each property. I guess my first question is, will the two dwellings or the two buildings remain? And secondly, Trent Severn Waterway, do they allow two docks on one piece of property?
There's only one.
So through the mayor to Councillor Bocheck, presently there is a dwelling on each of the properties, both the subject and the benefiting lands each have one dwelling, and there's one dock on the property there as it sits right now.
Okay, and can you have two dwellings on one parcel of land?
No, the zoning bylaw would only permit one dwelling.
So one will be demolished?
I'm just going to bring up the presentation to show
Please.
the property
There
configuration.
are two separate lots, Councillor Bocheck.
So here we have, so here's the subject lands, and they contain one dwelling, and these are the benefiting lands, and they contain one dwelling. The application would not have the effect of merging all of these lands into one. It would only have the effect of merging the benefiting lands with the severed lands outlined in yellow.
Okay, thank you for the clarification on that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for enlightening me. I was under a different opinion, so that's great. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Councillor Rienko.
Thank you. There is, according to this picture here that you had up, there is going to be one dock on the benefiting lands, but there's no dock on the subject lands. So first of all, I assume that's correct. And is there ability to put a dock on the subject lands. Of course, the straight line property line wouldn't allow for it, so the lines somehow have to be redrawn. But is there enough property to put a dock on the subject lands?
So through the mayor, presently, I don't believe that there is enough lot frontage there to comply with the 5 meter side yard setback for a dock on the subject land. However, these properties are owned by the same family. So their intent is just to use the one existing dock.
No, but they could come in and ask for a variance to put a dock in, couldn't they? There's not much, you're right, there's not much land there to put it on, but they could come in for a variance on that. I'm just curious that you have 2 lots and only 1 dock.
So through the mayor, that's correct. They could come before council or committee of adjustment requesting relief to permit a reduced side yard setback for the dock. But that's not what is being requested or proposed at this time right now.
Thank you. Councillor Cooper.
I just wanted to take up just a very brief comment on the dock situation, and that is that at the moment it's one family, 2 lots, 1 dock. Doesn't mean one can't be sold. So, you know, the fact that it's one family using it at the moment doesn't really provide for future planning decisions. So I'd just like to make that comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jarvis.
I'm just a follow up to Councillor Bocek's concerns and clarification there, Mr. Oster, is the benefiting lands, are they currently listed as a shoreline or not? Or would they be with this change?
So through the mayor to Councillor Jarvis, the benefiting lands do have a shoreline residential zone applied to them right now.
Thank you.
Even though they may not have had actual shoreline prior to this, but so be it. Any other questions? I have moved by Councillor Cooper, seconded by Councillor Douglas. Be it resolved that Development Services Report 2021-58 dated August 10th, 2021, with respect to a deeming bylaw application D2101 for 129 Heath Valley Trail be received. And that Council enact bylaw 2021-054 to deem lot 21 on plan M-497 to not be within a registered plan of subdivision. And that the clerk be directed to provide a certified copy of the deeming bylaw to the clerk of the District of Muskoka for section 50(26) of the Planning Act. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and that is carried unanimously. Okay. 5C. And 5C is Development Service Report 2021-60, zoning bylaw amendment Z21-07 for 9698 Island 1810 Georgian Bay, which is the removal of a holding symbol or H2. To our planning department.
Thank you. I'll be speaking on behalf of this application.
Ms. Reed, you've obtained a last name. Thank you very much.
There we go. So the Township of Georgian Bay has received an application from Jim Lazowski and Suzanne Bennett to remove the holding symbol on a lot known municipally as 9698 Island 1810 to facilitate the development of a cottage or dwelling and dryland boathouse on the property. The Township of Georgian Bay official plan has designated this lot as waterfront, and it is also located within the Cognisheen Coastal Waterfront Community. The lot is currently zoned Cognisheen Shoreline Residential Island, which is the SRI 7 with a holding symbol. The proposed and recommended zone is Cognisheen Shoreline Residential Island, so just the SRI 7. In order to remove the holding symbol, a plan of survey confirming the lot area above the specified contour as well as the location of the high water mark is required. Aside from the existing dock on the property, the lot is vacant and surrounding land uses are residential. As mentioned, the zoning for this lot is Cognizant Shoreline Residential Island with the holding symbol. They have completed a survey and they've confirmed that the lot area is 8,000 or just under 9,000 square meters, where the minimum required lot area is 10,000 square meters. So it is slightly undersized. Also, the required lot frontage is 180 meters and this subject lot has 142.7 meters. So again, undersized lot. As per section 4.11F of the bylaw, development on an undersized lot, provided that the lot existed prior to the date of passing of the current bylaw, is permitted. Section 4.11G further states that for shoreline residential island zones in the Cogdisheen coastal waterfront community, section 4.11F shall only apply if either of the following conditions are satisfied. So that the lot was created after October 1981, or that the lot was created prior to November of 1981 and has at least 120 meters of lot frontage and a lot area of at least 1 hectare above the 177 CGD contour. So it has been confirmed that this lot was created after October 1981. I believe it was in 1984 and 1985. So the proposed application is consistent with the relevant policies of the PPS, conforms with the general intent of the official plan and the zoning bylaw. The application meets all requirements to remove the holding symbol and is recommended for approval. I do want to note that there have been some minor revisions to the placement of the boathouse since the application was submitted and processed by the township, but these revisions do not appear to impact the application. I can answer any questions that council may have at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. Council. Council Cooper.
I really don't have any particular issues with this, but I wondered, all I can see is the survey, but I can't read it very well. So from a perspective of just seeing an overview of where things are placed, have you got something that you can bring up and show us where the various dwellings and whatever docks and so forth?
I don't know if I'm, apologies, I don't know if I'm able to share my screen. I'm not seeing. I'm using the web version of Zoom, so I'm not sure if I can share my screen on this. But perhaps Brad, I don't know if you have it handy, the survey.
Yeah, I'll just bring it up here 1 second.
On a review of where everything was located, we didn't have any concerns.
I realized you didn't have any concerns. I just wanted to see it, and it was very hard to read the survey. Thank you.
And the survey that Brad has up is the revised version. So this is the most up-to-date copy.
So just for clarification, so the septic system is over there. Yes, thank you. And that's setback total of 20 meters. Is it?
The proposed setback is 30 meters.
30, okay, thank you. That's excellent. And the main dwelling, do we have square footage of that or meters?
I don't believe we have the size on the survey. It is set back 24 meters.
Okay.
So I could maybe add a comment about the gross floor area if Eric wants.
Yeah, thank you.
This application actually came as a result of a building permit application. The property owner submitted a building permit application to the township. And upon review of the building permit, it was flagged that the H2 was still applied to the lands and that staff would not be able to issue a building permit until the H2 had been lifted. So as part of that review, We did complete a thorough analysis of the building permit application to advise the property owner if there were any concerns with respect to zoning provisions, setbacks, gross floor area, width, everything like that. So there was one minor concern, but the applicant has since addressed it. They've made a revision. So the entire development of the property, based on what was submitted with the minor revision, now does comply with the SRI 7 zone. And no relief to any of those provisions are requested to permit development other than the lifting of the H2.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Jarvis, I see your electronic hand.
Yeah, I just clarification. Two things. One, I want to I appreciate that Mr. Lazowski did offer an opportunity for myself to visit. I didn't get a chance to get over there. I know the property quite well, having passed through Hell's Gate on a number of occasions, so I'm familiar with the land, which I think is helpful always in these situations. But my question is to Aaron Reed again, with regards to how we calculate shoreline. It's as the crow flies, isn't it, from point to point? It isn't the actual shoreline itself, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. So I thought, okay, I have no other issues with this. Thank you.
Any other questions? I have one question, a technicality that won't affect my vote, but you refer to this as vacant land, and yet I see in an aerial view the dock is already there, and I'm just wondering, do we consider land vacant land even if the dock has been built?
Thank you, Your Worship. I believe I said that aside from the dock, it is vacant, so the dock is there, but there is no other development on the lot. So technically, I guess it's not vacant as the dock is present.
Okay, just my thing. If you did say that, then I missed it and I apologize. Council, any other questions? I have moved by Councillor Bocek, seconded by Councillor Hazelton. Be it resolved that council receives Development Service Report 2021-60 and enacts Bylaw 2021-055, being a zoning bylaw amendment, Z 21-07, to lift a holding symbol, H2, at lands located at 9698 Island 1810, Georgian Bay, or in the Cognition area. All those in favor? And that's another one passed unanimously.
Thank you for your time this morning. It was nice to meet you all.
Lazowski, now you can go and get your building permit.
Thank you very much, Council. I appreciate all the questions and the approval.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Have a great day. And thank you very much to Brad Oster for all your help throughout the process.
You're welcome.
And if I may, Mr. Oster, I must say I've been very impressed with the thoroughness and professionalism of the reports that you and Ms. Reed have presented to us today. Very helpful.
Yeah, here, here.
The only thing that's remaining is the closed session, and I believe that we originally booked our lawyer for 1 o'clock. Is that not correct, Ms. Sway?
That's correct, Your Worship. I've been doing some emailing in the background. We can meet at 10:30 though, if you wish.
Council, would you be agree? Yeah, I see thumbs up. So let's have a 25-minute recess and reconvene at 10:30 for the closed session portion of our meeting.
Fantastic, with a new link.
And we greatly appreciate your efforts in that regard, Ms. Wade, because I think it just makes things a little more efficient for all of us. Thank you.
Karen, will we be using the link for the 1 o'clock meeting?
Yes, yeah,
Okay,
that will
thank you.
work at 10:30. Yes, thank you.
All right. See everybody in 25 minutes.